And if I am lucky enough to have a family one day, I'm going to pass these traditions on to them. I'm going to make sure that they know where they come from and know their culture, all parts of it, so that they can be as proud as I am of being multiracial and multicultural. So with that, I'm going to give you a break from me talking, and I'm going to hand it back over to your instructor. And I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed talking about it. And if you ever have any questions, if you want to contact me at any time, your instructor can get you my email address, but I'll go ahead and give it to you now, which is lharless, Harless, @fullsail.com. So if you ever want to contact me, if you have any questions about what I said today, please contact me. I will be more than happy to discuss this with you at any point. And I'm going to hand it back over to your instructor, Marie, or Ms. Belland, whichever one you prefer, and let her take it from here.
Thank you so much, Laura, for telling us about your background. It's quite interesting to see the values and the traditions are passed down from generation. And I do believe that, I strongly believe in the thought that culture and one's environment plays a big part on not creating, that's not the right word, but forming who you are and your personality. I do have a question for you. If my question is that being multiracial and having such a diverse cultural background, I'm sure that there's a lot of stereotypes of different cultures and races that you've heard, and I want to know from your perspective what your thoughts are on stereotypes in general, and if there are stereotypes that that does match who you are, and then what are they, and what stereotypes don't match who you are?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. That is a great question. And there's a lot of stereotypes, especially when it comes to the African American side. I remember seeing clips that my father had and that his people had that were from a newspaper article that was trying to prove that blacks have smaller brains than whites, which meant that they were less intelligent, which is a stereotype that is still, believe it or not, out there today. And these clips were from the 50s and 60s. And there is actually a person who lectures on this trying to say that black people's brains are smaller than white people's, therefore they're less intelligent. And so those stereotypes still exist, and they're very much a part of the culture. There's also, little stereotypes, too, of what we eat. Like, for instance, there are stereotypes that all black people like fried chicken and watermelon and all of that. And even though it seems small, it can still be hurtful if it's brought up in the wrong context. My friend and I happen to kind of make fun of this, and we're like, yeah, we follow the stereotypes because we like fried chicken and we like watermelon. But, it's okay as long as you realize it's not true in all cases, and that it can be harmful if you use it in the wrong way. But the stereotype of being less intelligent, I think, is the one that I've encountered the most, and also with language, because I'm sure that we're all familiar with the term ebonics and how it relates to some of the inner city, especially African Americans, who kind of have their own language, so to speak. But I do get, it's interesting because when I mentioned that I am part black, sometimes I do get the comment, well, you don't sound black. And that's kind of interesting to me because I'm thinking to myself, well, how is a black person supposed to sound? And that is definitely a stereotype, along with also being rural because I don't have the West Virginia accent. That's also a stereotype that I have to go with. So being the fact that I stated earlier, that being from rural West Virginia goes into part of my culture and part of my upbringing, I do have to mention that stereotype as well, that if you do have a West Virginia accent or a country accent, you're seen as less intelligent there as well. I worked at a call center for a large part of my life, and when I was actually doing this in West Virginia, there was a call center that we used to call for information all the time, and it was located in Pennsylvania. And when I would call over for information, the operator was like, "Where are you calling from?" I said, "West Virginia." And she's like, "You don't sound like you're from West Virginia." And so the whole thing is I sounded more intelligent than they thought I should, is pretty much what it boiled down to and what it came down to, because anybody who had that accent was pretty much treated like they didn't know what they were doing. So those were the stereotypes that I kind of ran into the most, was the unintelligent, was the way we spoke, that kind of thing.
I think what I see as being the most harmful as far as stereotypes are concerned are the implicit messages that we receive, or the negative associations that we learn from society about, like you said, for a long time it was thought that black people were less intelligent, or if you have a country accent, you're less intelligent. And even though now I think we believe that that's not true, we may be prone to not being open to that person's input because of that implicit, I wouldn't say belief, but it's almost a subconscious belief that we have that this person would not be intelligent, so therefore they don't have anything good to say. What do you think? Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely, I definitely agree with that, because as soon as we hear that accent, or as soon as we hear this person talk, whether we realize it or not, especially if we've had negative experiences or that we've had stories passed down from generation to generation, it may be automatic for us to think, oh, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. Oh, this person only has this level of education, so why am I even bothering? When in truth, this person could be a PhD and we don't even know it. So I think it is kind of an unconscious part of us that if we haven't been around somebody who has completely shattered that stereotype, to actually still go back to those beliefs. And if we've had any kind of negative experience with these type of people, that it will just kind of be there, whether we want it to or not, whether we realize it or not, it could definitely be there. And so those are harmful as well, because we don't even realize we're doing it. And I have had people that I've spoken to, and I could kind of tell that if you would ask them about it directly, they would say, no, I'm not this way, or no, I don't have this stereotype, I don't believe this stereotype, but you could tell by what they were saying and how they were directing things at you that they definitely bought into the stereotypes, and they bought into that implicit stereotype. So yes, it's definitely out there, and I think it's definitely still a part of us, whether we want it to be or not.
Well, I don't have any other questions, so we can end here if there's any last things that you want to say before we close out the session.
I can't think of anything offhand, but I would love to come back for a part 2 if I do come up with something. So, absolutely. I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed talking about my heritage and my culture. And again, if anybody ever has any questions, please contact me. I'd be more than happy to go over it with you. Just knowing that, my background, knowing where I come from, you can kind of see that the way that I act reflects that. And I do want to leave you with that culture is very much a part of who we are, and that race is very much a part of who we are. Even though we are part of the human race, we still have different cultures, different traditions, and they all definitely influence who we are. So I just wanted to leave you with that and remind you of that fact, and to be tolerant of everyone and to be tolerant of other cultures, because if you speak to somebody with different traditions and speak to somebody with different ways, it's interesting to hear their stories and to hear where they come from and to see how different yet similar we all are. And with mine, with the African American side of my family and then the rural white side of my family, even though they were different in a lot of ways, they were also very similar. They all valued family. They all valued tradition. They come from different parts of the world, yet there's still similarities there along with the differences. So that's really the thought I want to leave you with. And thank you again for your time, and thank you for asking me to do this.
You're welcome, Laura, and you're always welcome to come and be a guest and speak at our Cultural Enrichment WIMBA session. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out the session and stop the archive. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me or Laura Harless. I did type in her address and name, or her email address and name in the chat box if you wish to get in touch with her. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.